Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of Unity 2D tutorials. In this episode we're going to talk about our inventory system. How can I pick up items and how can I point at them so we can see what items have we picked up. Let's go. We're going to build a simple inventory system that can contain 4 items. It can be more depending on your game, but we're going to build 4 items. And what we're going to do in this episode is simply create the base script of this inventory system and pick up those items, showcasing them in the UI that we're going to build as well. So let's start. First thing what we need to do is let's start with the graphics. We need to use an assets that I got from the Unity asset stores. It's a free asset pack. It's basically it's a pixel art UI assets, which you can find in the, okay, it's barely visible in here, but we're going to see how it looks in the whole, like buttons and stuff. You can find the link for it in the description below. So let's start by creating the UI element for it. Let's go and make an object inside our UI. Let's call it an inventory window. So with this we have to make it, stretch it to be fully done. And I'm gonna go with a simple UI element, like nothing too fancy, nothing too complicated. Let me just make this resize this to, I don't know, 920, 720. Okay. So the whole thing will be set up. I mean, the design is all up to you, but I'm gonna go with a simple one, and that one will be like this. So we'll have the word here, inventory, right? Inventory, yeah, something here. This is going to be the title of the thing, and we'll have a small window here, and it's going to contain, let's make it 6 pieces. It's fine, actually. You know what? Let's make it 6 pieces. Let's contain this, and here on the left side we'll make an empty UI element which will contain both image and the title of the thing. The title, image and the title. So that's that, and that's it. And then we can exit and enter as much as you want. And you can use the mouse drop, the mouse, which will enable the thing in here. So if you're not hovering on anything, it's going to be empty, and if you do, it's going to be displayed. So that's that. Let's go and start doing. First of all, I want to make, as before, the dim screen. So let me actually copy this one and put it here. It's a bit useful. Dim. And first of all, we're going to create the text on top. So the text on top will be, let's go here. Let's make this 1, so it's actually clamped on the top part. Make this probably 75, I guess. Inventory. First of all, the color is not proper, so we make it white. Let's make it 40, I guess. Yep. Feel free to pick up your own font and all. I tend to make any UI elements that is not pressable or clickable, raycast target disabled. So if you disable this, it will not register any clicks. So it actually, if you click on it, it will like go through it. If you have something behind it, it will click that thing behind. But I'm gonna keep the dim. It's fine because it's not gonna. We don't want to click anywhere behind. All right. So we've got the title, inventory title. The next thing we need to do, make items panel. For the alignment of the UI, the easiest way to do this is by assigning the anchors. And it's all depends on how you want to play the game, whether it's going to be landscape or portrait. But now we have portrait, I'm going to have to work with a much more like a 2/3 with the, like 2/3 of the screen almost, and it's going to take all of it. So let's go with 0.3, 0.4 to 0.9, and from 0.2, 0.3 to 0.7. 7, I guess. So let's see how this works. Actually looks. So we add an image into this game object, so it has visuals. So we got several backgrounds in here, like background with a grounded. I'm gonna go with the bright one. I'll give it that board as well. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. I'm gonna go with yeah, I think this one. This one is more brighter. And of course, it's sliced because it's so you can stretch it as much as you want. But you know what? I don't like this thing in here. You know what? It's fine. Yeah, let's have it. Let's have it. That's fine. Let's have this one. And let's do this thing where we assign the placements of the items. I still feel that this thing is not high enough, so let's make it 0.2. Okay. So there's multiple ways of assigning this stuff. If you want to make more dynamic stuff, we can use the what's it called? Let me actually show you an example. Let's say we have 3 elements in here. One is this, and one is this. So they're like 3 different stuff. White. Let's make this slightly darker so it can be visible. Actually, make it bluish. You can either do this manually by putting them in a place with anchoring them properly, or you can have the layout, the grid or the horizontal. Let's go with the grid. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna have to assign here the orientation. I think let's just start the corner from top left and there's some stuff. So child alignment, let's go with middle center. That's how we need it. Flexible. Let's go flexible column count. We need 3. Okay, and then what we need is the cell size. I think 100 by 100 is good. We just need to make more spacing. 25 is fine, I guess. I think the size is too big. 75. And let's add more of them. Of course, we need to make spacing also for the Y. 40 by, yeah, I think it's fine. Like if we change the scale in here, we're gonna have some issues. So for this, what we need to do, we need to make sure that, let's put it back at 60.9. Let's make sure that the width is set like this. So in here, we make sure that even if the script becomes narrower, the stuff don't go outside from the width. Okay. These things you have to keep on testing them to know how it happens. So I'm gonna go with this initial setup. You can play with this as much as you want to have your own setup. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create an image, and that image is gonna have, like, it's gonna become some sort of the outline. You know what I mean? Like it's the place that we'll be putting the image of the item inside whenever we pick one. So let's see what we have in here. We should have something that relates to let's go with this. This one looks nice. Like this old one is black, white, and then the item itself is going to be more darker. And let's make let's create item 1 background. Okay? And then what we're going to create inside of it is another image and make it full, but not exactly full because we don't want it to cover the whole thing. So we're going to add up some margin in here. I think that looks fine. And in here we're going to create item 1. I think that's it. Item 1 image. Okay. Item 1. I think that's fine. And here we can call image. So with this, we can let me do this thing where I can assign it something and then put that thing simple and preserved. So what this does, I can make sure that it's always like this. What we're gonna do is I put this as just a placeholder, but I want this feature to become preserved because I don't want stuff to be stretched. That being said, we're not going to have this visible if there's no item. So by default, we're going to create in the script a mechanic that hides this placeholder if we have nothing. Otherwise, add them. So we'll have 6 pieces. So we have item 2, item 3, yeah, the naming, make sure it's fine, item 5, and item 6. So this is good. The next thing we should do is we should create, let me just duplicate this and call item description. I'm gonna have to get rid of the grid because I'm not gonna use it. Get rid of this, and instead of having this from 4 to 9, from point 4 to point 9, I'm gonna have this from point 1 to point 3.5. I think that would be enough, and I'm gonna have to give this the darker background. What's this? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give this the darker layout. Wait, I think I need to make it similar to this one because this one looks more pointy edged, whereas this one is not. You know what? I like it more like this, just to diversify stuff. So item description inside, we're gonna have to have 2 elements, of course. Item image, and it's easier if we keep it in the middle. You know what? It's much nicer. Let's put this placeholder. Anything, honestly, normal and preserved. So let's anchor it. I think it's much better to anchor this stuff. So 0.2 to 0.8 and then 0.2 to 0.8. The height is not proper, I suppose. Let's make the height less. No, let's keep it as it is. I wanted this to be slightly lower, so it's called 0.2 to 0.7. Okay. So we got the item image, and then we will put this on top while putting this in the middle, everything, and make sure the anchor is 1, so it's actually latched on the top. Make sure the height is, let's go with 50, and the color is, let's go with white and outlined. So outline just makes the lights, the text looks much nicer. One thing I can do is do it this way. This way I can have more viewable elements. So here we're going to go item name. What I'm going to do is, I'm thinking about keeping this hidden as an all. You know, it would look nice, but this will seem to be floating on the right by itself. So it's fine. Design wise, this is just a mock-up, so it needs to work. That's all. So right now we've got this thing all set up. Let's save our scene and start with a script. So what we need to do, we need to create a script called inventory system. And then we open this up. Alright, we're here. What we're going to do is, I'm going to explain what the script is going to include and do. So we've had from before the interaction system, which implemented the pickup and examine. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the pickup thing, the interaction, but instead of saving it in a dummy list that we used here, we used to pick up the item here, pick it up and just save it in a list. Instead of putting here, we're going to save it in a list inside the inventory system. First thing we need is, let me just delete this stuff first. We need to create a public list. Let's go game object. Items. The idea of saving game objects in a list or items in a list, it's all debatable. Everybody have their own stuff. Some of them they have dynamic items, some of them they have fixed items in the game. Some have a different approach. What I do is I use the same game object and I just store it in in the list, and I use it in my items in my inventory. So instead of having a prefab setup, this is an easy way. We'll see how it works in a bit. So first thing we're going to need is list of items picked up. That's simple. The next thing is we need to create the UI reference element. So what we need to do is in inventory system window, public game object. So since we're inside the inventory system, I don't have to write inventory system. I'm just going to call UI window. The next thing is I'm going to create a list of images. So before we do images, we have to actually import the UI library. So we create a list of images, which is going to be items. Let's have a proper naming for it. And then I'm going to call items images. Okay, and the next one will be public the header UI main item items section. But in here I'm going to create item description. In here we're going to have the game object of UI description window. Let's make this capital. And the next thing we need to have the image of the description item. So we're going to go with image description image and text, which we're going to put the title of the item. Description title. Okay, so let's recap what we have here. We got ourselves a list of items that we're going to pick up. We've got the main UI object of the main UI window. We've got ourselves the images of each item that we have, and then last but not least, we've got the elements of the description window. Let's do what we had before in here. So instead of adding stuff in here, we're going to delete the list that we had before and remove the others and make sure that we don't have issues in here. So we go public void pick up and we pass a game object item. So what this is going to do is it's going to simply add, actually first of all I have to initiate this new, it's going to add another item to the whole list. So far so good. So let's finish from here. Let's call the inventory manager system by using the find object by type and go with pickup and pass along the item itself. Okay, but I'd rather do this in a different way, because instead of calling this part in here, we can call directly that inventory system, because we're just making a relay. And if we go to the item, this is what we mean. So for the pickup items, we instead of calling the interaction system and then going to the inventory system, we can right away go to the inventory system directly and then pass along the game object itself. And yep, that's it. That's for this one. We have the item picked up, add the item to the items list. Okay, so if we go start testing right now, we're gonna have the same results that we had from the previous episodes, but I just want to make sure it works. So right now we have we've set up stuff from before, like this item in here that does events. So I'm gonna disable it, disable the eagle, have a lever in here, and the lever will pick up and it's gonna say a lever. Weird lever, right? And its name is lever. So let's save it up, put this thing in here, and first of all, before we start, we have to import the inventory system. Oh no, here to the Fox. And as always, bring this up, Let's make sure we reference everything. So the UI window is this. And one good hint, if you want to drag and drop a lot of items, you can, because if you click this, see this one goes away. The easiest way to do is to lock the UI inspector window. But this means it keeps this in here, whatever you press anywhere. This one remains on the Fox that I locked in. So I want to drag and drop the images of each of the items in the UI elements and drag and drop them inside. Oh wait, should drag this up a bit. Okay. Should put them in here. Should drag them inside the item images. And then when you unlock, it goes back to whatever you were holding right now. So that's cool. And we've got our images in the UI, we've got the UI window, and next we have to do the description. So the description is this, the item image is this, and the text is this. Let me name this item description, item title. Good. So we're good. What we're gonna have right now is, instead of saving this item inside the interaction system, it's gonna save in here in the items of the inventory system. So if I click here, that's it. We've got ourselves a lever. That's amazing. So what are we gonna do right now? We're gonna show it inside the UI element. To do this, we need to do a method which gonna update the UI. So let's go make this one, call it update UI. I mean, the naming is up to you. What this does is refresh the UI elements in the inventory window. So what this means is, if we've got no items, it's gonna hide all the images inside the container of all of these 6 pieces here. See, it's gonna hide these items in here. Like, what I mean is these pictures. So by default they're hidden, but we're gonna make sure they're always hidden if there's nothing. And if we got one item, it's gonna pop up. We're gonna go like it's gonna pop up in here, the second one in here, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So it's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's easy. We're gonna go and do this thing. If items that count equals 0. Actually, you know what? Let's do the for loop. So we add into for integer equals I 0. We start from 0, and the count will be exactly how many items we have. This number of items. Items that images. E less than items. Images. Just that length. Okay. I plus plus. So what this is gonna do is, it's gonna go 6 times inside these items, and just do stuff to it. So before we actually start writing things, let's write the logic of what's gonna happen in here. For each item in the items list, show it in the respective slot in the items images. So what this translates into that we need to go through these items and then show them in the same index of this one. For example, if the first item, like which is index of 0, we put it in the 0 image here. 1, 1. So the best approach is, instead of going through these items elements, we go through the actual items itself. What this means is, if we have one item, we only do this thing once. Actually, the list has a count, but where the array has length. But before we do all this stuff, we have to make a small method called like hide all. What this does, I like to make these kind of small helper scripts. Hide all the items images, item UI images. So what we're going to do, we're going to go for each. I'm going to hide all the images. That's it. For each, let's go with the variable I in images sorry, items images. We go I.setActive. What? Oh, we have images. Sorry. I.gameObject.setActive. That false. Okay. So what this makes sure of is that no matter what, we hide everything. So let's call this at the start, so we can make sure that everything is hidden, and then we show the items one by one if we have them. So let's say if we have no items, this thing will not run. But if it has one item, it will run once. So we'll do this thing. We check these items one by one, and then we assign each item to its respective UI image. So we go like do this items images, and we have the same identifier, which is I here dot sprite equals, and then we have to assign the image from the item itself. So since the item is a game object, we need to access the item script, this one, because this item script includes the description and the image and of course the name of the whole thing. So we're going to do this thing. We're going to add this item in here, and put the sprite belongs to items I, of course, dot get component sprite. Oh no, sorry, not sprite. Wait, was it sprite or image? Oh, never mind. So the item, it's this item thing, the lever, is basically a 2D sprite. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go sprite renderer dot sprite. So we've done a lot of writing and so few testing. We're going to go update UI. So what this does, this makes sure that whenever we add an item, we update the whole thing. Let's go to that one part where we have to open the whole thing. So let's go with update. We have to get an input. An input means that decide which button is the items. I'm going to go with I, because it's the simplest one. So what we're going to say is if input that get key down key code that I, let's write something here, call it void toggle inventory. So there's one thing about inventories. A lot of games, when you open the inventory, the player cannot move, right? I'm going to apply this in here because I don't want the player to be moving around while we have our inventory open. For that to work, we're going to have to create more stuff. General fields. So let's make a boolean flag indicates if the inventory is open or not. Let's make a boolean is on. Okay, you know what? Let's make it is on or is open. Makes much more sense. So is open by default is false because it's not open up. So we'll go with toggle inventory, and in here we're gonna do this thing. We're gonna go is on equals, sorry, is open equals the opposite of is open. So that just flips it back and forth between true and false, and then we apply what we need. So what we do here is it's gonna be as simple as let's actually make this public because we're gonna be using it from outside. I'm gonna show you where, and then we go with UI window the set active is open. So if it's on, like if it's true, this shows up. If it's false, it doesn't show up, right? So that's good. So what we have here, we have all this stuff, and then what we can do right now is we can just start testing. So let's go down in here, just make sure everything's fine. Everything seems to be fine. So let's give it a test. Click I and see how it actually opens up. See, it opens up. Right now we can move because we didn't restrict it, but we can open and close it. That's amazing. Let's restrict the movement. So let's go back to our Fox script where we had this method that restricts the movement, like can move. That's it. We've used the interaction system for it before, like while examining an object you can move. We'll use the same thing in here. We'll call if find object by type, and we go with inventory system is open. So if the inventory is open, we make the can false. So with this, we can make sure that we can't move while the inventory is on. Simple mechanic. So let's try. Yeah, we can move, we can jump, nothing. That's amazing. Now we can. So we're almost there. The only thing left is showing the item in the items list. So right now we've implemented the whole showing the image thing. So if I click I, there's nothing here, right? But if I come in here and I click E, we picked it up. If I click I, something didn't show. Oh, yeah, it's my bad. So I assigned the images, but I did not enable them. So what we do here, like everything is hidden by default, right? False. But whenever we iterate in each item, we have to enable the item's image itself. It's active, true. So that makes sure only to show the picked up items. But if you have an item, everything is going to be hidden by default. Right? Okay. Let's move. Click I, and that's it. We've got ourselves our first item. The next thing and the last thing we're going to do is, whenever we hover on top of this thing, we want this window to pop up with the name and the image of the whole item itself. I mean, again, it's all up to you. You can do the same thing in here. You can do it like a pop-up window, it's all up to you. I'm going to use it this way because if you can create the separate window, you can create a smaller one. In order to make this, we're going to have to work with the event triggers. And event triggers are quite simple for everybody, especially non-programmers, because you don't have to write anything. So what I want to do is, I want to make sure that this thing is hidden by default. Okay? Or actually, I want to keep it. Let's keep this on by default. Yeah, just keep it on by default. I don't want, because it's going to have a lot of empty space. Let's keep it on by default, but these things are hidden. And what we're going to do is, we're going to make sure that these items, the images themselves, they're going to have, they're going to have something called event trigger. We need to do, sadly we can't, this event trigger doesn't have multiple editing things, so we're going to have to do it one by one, which is not a big deal. So what we're going to do, we need to actually register whenever the mouse comes in and leaves it. So whenever the mouse comes in, it's the pointer enter and then pointer exit. You can have a different approach. You can have whenever you click on it, it's all up to you. And honestly, that sounds even much more easier to do. But again, if you want to do on click, you can do pointer down, or you can use the button script, from which you can have this thing in here. I'm going to go with this one because this one is slightly more complex. So if you can do the complex stuff, you can do the easy ones. Let's add trigger here and trigger here. Whenever it's on, we need to show stuff. Whenever it's off, we need to hide that stuff. So let's go make a script for this. Let's go make public because we need access from outside. Let's show description. I can't write English. And in order to show description, we have to give it a reference. And the reference means, for example, this is the first, second, third, fourth. So we'll give it an integer, a number, and let's call it ID. The second one will be public void hide description. And we don't need to have a reference in here because what we're going to do is we're just going to hide the whole description thing. So description image that enabled equals false. Description text that text equals. I think it's much nicer to do this way instead of hiding the whole game object itself. Oh, you know what? Let's just do it. Game object is still active false. It's the blunt approach, but the safest one. So what we do this thing. But whenever we do the description, we need to do three stuff. We need to set that image, set the text, and show the window. So to set the image, all we have to do is we go description image dot sprite equals whatever reference of this thing here. So we're going to go with items id dot get component sprite renderer. Not what I meant, not exactly what I meant. We're going to show the same image of this So it's in simple. It'll be as simple as images. I picked the wrong thing. Items, images, id dot sprite. So it's going to pick the equivalent image of the thing that we pointed at. That's good. And the text is going to be as simple as description text. That title equals. We're going to take it from the items list which we saved in here. Again, you can store more stuff in here. You can have a dynamic stuff. It's all up to you. I just made the general approach, and you can diversify it, make it more simple or even more complex. So let's go items, id, that git component. So that game object of an item, it has a script called item, which includes the details that we need. Description text. Oh, and that's actually the wrong thing. What I need is the title. The title we can get from items, id.name. So we're gonna get the titles, like the object's name itself. So this one is, let's say, called lever. It's gonna give the lever name and the image of it. The next thing we're gonna do is description UI.setActive. Actually, no, not sure. Show the elements. So we're gonna use this thing the same, but instead of false, we're gonna make it true. So I think we've got what we need. We have this, and that's it. So all I have to do is I need to implement it on one item and then replicate it on all of them. So what we need to do is we need to drag and drop the Fox object and then go to the inventory system and make inventory. Yeah, inventory system. Where's show description? Wait, what did I name it? Show description. Yeah. Inventory system. Yeah, here, show description. And this will be unique for, like, unified for everybody. It's going to be hide description. So in order to do this in a proper way, you can copy this and paste it as value, like paste the values, not as new. This one is the first item. We keep this as 0 because this is the starting numerical number in the arrays, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if I'm not mistaken, we should have ourselves a proper inventory system. So if if there's nothing happens in here. But if we pick this up and go into inventory, that's it. It shows it as soon as we land our mouse on it. So with this, we have ourselves a long tutorial episode, but it's well worth it if you're looking for a simple inventory system and you've been struggling to make it. And feel free to make it more advanced, more fun, more, it's all up to you. This is the basics of it, and I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something from it. If you did, hit the like and subscribe button. And if you got more questions, please ask us in the comments or join our Discord channel in the description. Also find the link of the assets that I mentioned also in the description. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!